This week on Buffering, we are talking about the discount trap and how you can shield your brand from a price battle. And Gabe, before we jump into price, I want to talk a little bit more about Thanksgiving, just in case we didn't lose enough followers last week. But how was your Thanksgiving?
Oh, it was lovely, man. Got to spend a bunch of time with my family and had a good time rolling. We rolled right into Christmas time. Also, a day after Thanksgiving, went and got our Christmas tree, got it all set up. Kids are super jacked. The time I spent with my family and friends over Thanksgiving was lovely. But I do have to tell you, my turkey was pretty garbage. And I was very sad and disappointed. I know a chef isn't supposed to blame their tools, but the electric barbecue that I had to cook the turkey on was pretty rough, and I do not think did the turkey any favors. And I'm sure John DeRocher will love hearing this, that my turkey turned out terrible. But yeah, I was not a huge fan. The sides and everything still delicious, but not so much the turkey.
My turkey also turned out terrible, but I would have said that regardless of the turkey. Not a food, as we discussed on our last podcast, that I enjoy. But yeah, I agree on the sides. Had some fantastic bread, had some fantastic funeral potatoes, which, like I mentioned, they have their own Wikipedia page. And one of the top highlights of my week with Thanksgiving here is, of course, telling everyone about this fantastic dish and how it's famous, has its own Wikipedia page. But I also noticed that on the Wikipedia page, someone called them Texas potatoes, and I don't know if that's a broadly accepted term or someone just added that, but I might sneak in and remove that one. I've also heard them called party potatoes, which might be a bit more appropriate.
That's a little less grim than the funeral potatoes. So maybe it was somebody was just trying to put a positive spin on it. I did love the joke you made last week, Zach. I don't know how many people caught this, but you were talking about all of the things you enjoy. And you said, I'm basically just a walking carb.
I was going to say, I just talked about the bread and the potatoes.
Yeah, like, you just walked right into it again.
Yeah. I don't know how that keeps happening, but no, it's a very common side dish. So it's one of my favorites, of course. When you put it next to turkey, you can guess which one I as you would say, Gabe, mowed through.
Mowed down. I mowed down some sweet potatoes. I do love, my mother-in-law makes a great sweet potato dish. That's sweet potatoes, it's peaches, it's of course marshmallow. You got to throw a little bit of marshmallow on there, and then some like pecans that she toasts on. So it's got crunchy, it's got sweet, it's got it's quite good. I could eat that. I could eat that all day.
Well, let's stop talking about Thanksgiving food, but I'm glad your family's Yeah, I'm glad your family's getting ready for Christmas, though. But Gabe, you have to tell me, did you cut down a tree, or do you have a fake tree?
I don't have a fake tree, but we did not cut it down. We did go to the tree farm to pick out a tree. So I'll give the really quick story on this. So my mother-in-law always gets an enormous Christmas tree, real Christmas tree. So when my wife and I first started dating, which we've been dating we've been together for a long time. The first time I went to her house was right about Christmas time. And I walked in and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the biggest Christmas tree I've ever seen inside a house. It's huge. It was huge. It's like 12 feet tall, but it's not so much that it was tall. It's extremely wide. It takes up basically almost the whole front room of her house. It was probably 12 feet tall or 12 feet wide, the trees that she was getting at that point. So the next year that my wife and I were dating, I got the pleasure of getting to put up the giant Christmas tree, which was like a 4-person job. They've started to shrink over time, and now they're still tall, but they're not quite as wide, which makes them a little bit easier to deal with. But putting the ornaments and lights on the tree, it's a multiple day effort. So we got that squared away, got her squared away, and then got ourselves a more reasonably sized tree that myself and the kids could, put together pretty quickly.
Yeah. Great, long story long there. Here in the mountains, you can use the rec.gov app, recreation.gov app, and get a Christmas tree permit and go cut down your own tree in the mountains. Yeah, there's some guidelines on, you have to be like 100 feet from the road or so on, but you can get as big or as small as a tree as you'd like.
Wow, that's wild. We were watching Elf over the
I was gonna say, it reminds me of college. Me and my roommate and a few friends went out and cut down a tree, and I think we threw that tree away in like May, but it was a great addition to the house.
Like super brown and crusty fire hazard.
Got lost.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's hilarious. I was going to say we were watching Elf over the weekend, and one of my favorite scenes is when they cut the tree down in Central Park, and James Caan is talking about how felonies are fun now. I thought felonies were felonies, and I don't know why. I just always think that part is hilarious. You're going to tell me now that you don't like Elf? I can see it. I can.
Oh, no,
see
no,
it
no, no.
on your face.
It's one of my favorites. I don't know where I would
Okay.
rank that, but number one favorite Christmas movie. Just to see if I could lose any more subscribers. No, this is a good one. The Grinch with Jim Carrey. That's my favorite.
Okay. I don't know that I would put that on the top of my Grinch list. I'd probably put it. Now I'm going to make everybody mad. I'd probably put it third behind other Grinch related movies, but that's fine. That's fine. We can agree to disagree, just like on Thanksgiving food.
Yeah. Well, luckily, in a few weeks, we'll have our Christmas meal episode, which thankfully does not include turkey. But
This
Gabe,
is true.
today, I didn't want to spend the whole time talking about the holidays, but I want to talk about what I mentioned, the discount trap. So discounting. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is we just came out of Black Friday, just came out of Cyber Monday as well. So we've seen a lot of discounts floating around. We even joked, Gabe, I was telling you about the laptop that a month ago was, $1,999, but suddenly it was on sale for Black Friday for $2,100. So, there's a lot of odd math going around, but I also want to talk about just discounting in general and what this means for your brand.
Yeah. And yes, coming off of Black Friday, coming off of Cyber Monday, it's a perfect time to have this conversation. I know, Zach, we were talking earlier today about how inundated our email inboxes are right now with every business that we've ever purchased anything from in the history of the world is just hammering us with discounts right now. And I saw so many memes over the weekend of kind of like what you're talking about, the $700 TV that was $700 2 weeks ago, and now it's $900, but it's actually on sale for $700. And there's so much of that happens this time of year. So I love this conversation around how to avoid some of these traps. The discount trap name that you came up with here, I think is a perfect way to describe this. So I'm excited to get into the conversation today.
Yeah. So talking about discounts, when you create discounts, you have this cyclical dysfunction in your business where if you offer them too often or too much, you become dependent on these price reductions to drive volumes, drive acquisition. And what happens from here, Gabe, is you erode your margin, you destroy your brand equity. And I think it's a very easy path to start to go down, offering these discounts to acquire subscribers. But once you go down that path, it's very difficult to stop. And there's actually a great use case when I was doing some research on this podcast that involved JCPenney of when they tried to pivot away from discounting back in the day. I don't even know if JCPenney's still in business, but either way,
I can't believe you even know who JCPenney. The JCPenney is a store, to be honest.
I do my research for this podcast. But anyway, at some point they stopped and they went to like a what you see is what you pay model, and it just totally upset their customers. So that's my JCPenney quote of the day here, Gabe. But can you talk to us a little bit about why this is so important from a profit perspective?
Yeah, for sure. And we did an episode on this. I think it was about 18 months ago, Zach, to be honest. So it's been a minute where we talked about pricing and the psychology of pricing and things like that. But one of the topics of that discussion was, why is pricing so important to get right? And it's really important because getting pricing right is the largest profit driver that you have in the business. And I'm going to just call out a few numbers here. There's basically 4 ways that you can impact the bottom line of your business: volume or unit sales, variable cost, fixed cost, and price. Those are kind of the 4 main levers that you have to pull from. So let's talk through each one of these really quick. Unit sales or volume. A 1% increase in volume equates to about a 4% increase in profit. On the variable cost side, so this would be, things that, this is basically the cost of acquiring whatever product you're going to sell, those sorts of things. The variable cost side, a 1% decrease there results in around a 7% increase in profit. So that's a pretty decent lever there to focus on. So if you're able to drive additional volume costs and those sorts of things, certainly something that you should look at. From a fixed cost perspective, a 1% decrease in fixed cost equates to a 3% increase in profit. So variable costs have a much larger impact than fixed costs when it comes to changes in, small changes in decreases there and the increase in profit. Price, just to call this out last here, a 1% increase in price has an 11% increase in your profit, or will drive an 11% increase in your profit. So very small changes in price, if you get it correct or if you get it incorrect, can have a massive impact in the overall profitability of the business. And Zach, the industry that we work in, primarily, right, working with broadband service providers, that's a heavily fixed cost business. So price changes there are potentially even more impactful and drive increased profit or decreased profit if you don't get pricing correct.
Taking me right back to my accounting classes, Gabe, with variable and fixed
I knew you'd love
pricing.
this conversation.
You know me, I love a good number, but which is not something I said in geometry or calculus. But when it comes to marketing business, here we are. Now, back to the discount trap here. In our decoding dollars, I think we talked about reference pricing, and what we have here with discounting is what I'm going to call reference price shifting, where originally we might have a higher price, which we as the consumer think of as the anchor, but then we can discount that so it seems like a better deal. And we kind of alluded to this with the Black Friday. Maybe people increase their prices a little bit to raise that anchor and then discount it. As we saw. But what happens when you do this deep discounting is you acquire customers with lower customer lifetime value, and with that you also see higher churn rates with those acquired subscribers. These are not your high value subscribers. These are subscribers or customers that are loyal to the transaction, but not to you, not to the brand. And another thing I think we see here, and we have some great examples I want to talk through, but prices are often associated with quality. A low price signals low quality and creates that cognitive dissonance of, is this product actually valuable? Gabe, I think I see this a lot. Like when I open up like the TikTok shop and I see all the products there, it's all very low priced. And I immediately have that expectation, especially being on TikTok, that it's immediately low value as well.
I've even seen this. So I don't know that I've told you this, Zach, but my wife and I are doing a bathroom remodel project right now. So we just signed the contract with the general contractor a couple of weeks ago. We're starting to go through this process of like buying vanity, buying the mirrors, buying all of the stuff that's going to go in this new bathroom, which is an absolutely delightful way to spend my time and my money. But one of the things that I've noticed, I've gone through looking at all of these different bathroom vanities. I was looking at one today, and my wife and I actually agreed that we like it the best. However, it's about $400 less than all of the other ones that we were looking at. And I 100% thought, is this cheaper because it's cheap, because it's of poor quality? Even though it had good reviews, the original price was significantly higher than most of the other ones we were even looking at. It did the like $1,900 and then the big slash through, right? And it was, like 50 something % off. But my immediate thought, because I had anchored around this, kind of like $1,200, maybe $1,400 price point that we've been looking at for all of these other products, this one was just under $1,000. And I'm like, well, is this a crap product, right? Is this something that's actually not going to be a good purchase? It was just interesting thinking through the psychology of that as I was actually going through and doing that shopping.
It's funny. I did that last Black Friday. I bought a 75-inch OLED TV, and come to find out, it's very difficult to find a TV stand that can house or can a TV that size can sit on. And the one I ended up finding was on that cheaper side in terms of price. And that was my number one thought is this thing going to fall apart if I put this nice TV on top of it? And I'm happy to say it's still standing today. But with
I'm just picturing
discounting,
you putting this on the thing and it just like disintegrating into a pile of dust because it was of such poor quality.
I'll have to take a picture because I think I'm going to like crack up just explaining this now. I think like it's bowing a little bit in the middle, like, because the TV's sitting on it. But again, quality and price there. So going back to discounting here, I think, consumers are primarily going to categorize, businesses into two buckets. You're going to have your always on sale and never on sale companies. Now, your always on sale this is where the expectation that the expectation is that the sticker price is fiction. It's not real, right? So if you buy something at full price, you're making a mistake. And I think we see a lot of this in clothing companies, Gap, Old
Hmm.
Navy, Kohl's. If you're surprised that I knew all of those. Um, and
I
once
think it's
you're
funny that two of those are the same brand. Gap and Old Navy are both owned by the same company, as well as Banana Republic and Athletic and a couple other things. So it's funny that both of those kind of follow that same playbook.
probably J.C. Penney in there too. Why not just
No, you
talk
could
about them all?
definitely throw J.C. Penney in there too. Yeah,
but
for sure.
once your brand is always on sale, you immediately have that perception of the discount company. And
Mhm.
the way back to that premium positioning, like I said earlier, becomes even more difficult. And what happens here with the always on sale is that discount, it's not an event. It's just a signal of your brand's identity. Now, on the opposite side of this, you have the never on sale companies. You have a fixed price, it signals stability, quality, and there's even a level of exclusivity in on this. And the first company that comes to mind with a never on sale is Apple. The only sale that I'm aware of that they do, there's two of them, is back to school and like the Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I don't think they do discounts beyond that.
No, and if you go to purchase one of their products, even outside of the quote unquote Apple ecosystem, it's still going to be the exact same price. So I think that's a really good example of that never on sale versus always on sale. And to go back to something that you said earlier about JCPenney, when they tried to move away from that always on sale model, their customers revolted because their the discount was expected. It was expected that that was the type of business that they were going to, and people couldn't rationalize in their mind that even though the price may be the same, it wasn't the deal that they were getting when they went to JCPenney before. Kohl's, I think, falls into this too. I haven't been in a Kohl's in quite a while, to be honest, but it felt like anytime I would go into one of those, everything was marked with like a 50 to 60% off, slash through, right? So I mean, why would you ever pay full price for anything there when everything is on sale constantly? It makes no
Those
sense.
those are just the going out of business prices, Gabe. And add the exclusive retailer, since we're talking about clothing so much, Vuori, Lululemon, places like that, exclusive. Um, Moving on though, let's talk about the psychology angle here of the post holiday consumer. So we made it through Cyber Monday, right? But if you're really looking to convert the deal hunters into brand loyalists who aren't just going to bail in 2 months, we've got to talk about the neurochemical angle here and the behavioral state of what I'm going to say is the average consumer. And shopping behavior is governed by two neurochemical systems. And this is where we're really going to bring in the psychology and the
Oh,
brain
I'm
into
excited to get nerdy here,
conversation.
man. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, so I'm going to do two more categories here. So you have the hunt, right? So discount shopping triggers that dopamine system where you have that evolutionary mechanism that's, seeing the XX% off a sticker and you see that as a win. You have this high intensity but then short-lived feeling with that sale. And what that translates into is a transactional relationship where the brand is just supplying that short-term fix. Now, on the other side of this, the bond, right? The oxytocin here. So that long-term brand loyalty that is associated with trust, safety, and social connection. And this, unlike dopamine here, is released during moments of positive human interaction, that tactile engagement, or perceived care even as well. So following Cyber Week, what you have here is this big dopamine crash. The excitement fades. Maybe you have buyer's remorse, or if you're faced by all these decisions, which is something we commonly see in the industry, you have that decision fatigue as well.
It's such a great way to frame this up in kind of that juxtaposition, Zach. And you're spot on. It's we've we've all we mentioned this a few minutes ago as well. Our inboxes are just inundated with discounts right now for brands that we've bought something from, and it's all it's doing is just reinforcing that fix, right? That, hey, I want to get that discount, so I need to purchase something. It's the impulse, it's the digital impulse buy, right? It's like when you're walking out of the grocery store and you see all of the stuff at the front of the store that's discounted, and it's the quick thing that's just easy to grab as you're walking out. We're talking about the digital version of this, and it's it's an empty purchase. It's an empty calorie purchase, right? Not to, not to go back to the, chips or candy or whatever, but I mean, it really is. It's an empty calorie purchase versus, like you said, creating that real relationship with consumers that is going to be long lasting and is moving away from that low customer lifetime value group that you were talking about previously.
And I think that's the big theme of the day here, Gabe, is customer lifetime value. Do you want customers for, 6 months, or do you want customers for 6 years?
Yeah. I mean, I know which one I'm going to take all day, right? And even if it costs me a little bit more money to acquire those customers, I would much rather have the longer term customer lifetime values, especially in a recurring revenue business where our customers are working, where they have that monthly recurring fee every single month. I'd much rather be focusing on those high customer lifetime values than the ones who are chasing a deal. Yes, there's always going to be those customers. They're going to be chasing a deal. They're going to call up in a year, when a new provider moves into town and, try to get you to offer them a better deal. That's a really hard way to make a living in the broadband service provider space, chasing that specific group of people who are constantly going to be jumping from one provider to the next, searching for that best deal. And if you as a broadband service provider brought them in with a deal, that's what they're going to think of you. They're going to think that, you are the discount provider because you offered them a discount in order to get them on board. The other thing I'd say here, I was in a meeting with a general manager a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about this specific topic, and his company does not offer discounts and deals. And one of the things that they hear from their customers all the time is that they love that about them, that they're not bringing them in at a lower discount and then jacking the price up to some, massively higher amount after a 12-month or 24-month period of time. And we work with a lot of providers that fall into that category. Talk about that. That's absolutely something that should be discussed on your website, in the conversations that your CSRs or your door-to-door sales reps or your INR techs, whoever's talking to the customer. Those are the things that they should be leaning into to tell that customer why you're different. And you're ultimately going to find the right customers for you when you have that confidence in the solution that you're selling versus just chasing that dopamine hit of the next discount.
And not to bring the broadband labels into this conversation as well, but that's a perfect example of, hey, you might be getting this discount today, but what happens to that price in 12 months? And the other thing, I didn't really dive into this on the podcast much for this episode because I do want to make this more of a topic for its own episode, but there's also that, as we talk about the psychology of buying, right, and shopping, there's also that unboxing experience too. I think Apple's done a very good job at this. So when you think of, your products, if you're doing this self-install, what's it like to unbox or set that equipment up in our case, Gabe? Or maybe you buy a TV during Black Friday or, some new clothing. What does that unboxing look like as well? I feel like direct-to-consumer companies have excelled in this department.
Agreed.
I think of the company Quip, the toothbrush, toothpaste, hygiene company there. They used to have I don't know if they still do, it's been a while since I've used them, but they used to have a fantastic unboxing experience every month. I think of, like I said, any of those DTC companies where you get the box. BarkBox was another one, right? But I want to do a whole episode on that in the future there, because I think there's a big psychology angle there that where we can kind of fill in that gap of, was there buyer's remorse in this process? Or, how do we replace that dopamine that we talked about for that transactional relationship? And more to talk about there. But what I want to
before we move
off
that topic, before we move off that topic, it's, as you were talking there about the unboxing experience in DTC companies, it reminded me of a situation. So I had a couple of years ago, my wife got me a subscription for this thing where they'd send, like, once a month, they would send a fitness thing. Sometimes it was like a t-shirt, sometimes it was a specific piece of equipment. And then they would also send some, like, quality snacks and, things like that, right? Like protein snacks or protein shakes or, whatever, right? But they'd send all this stuff in a little box. And the quality of the box deteriorated over the time that I had that subscription. At first, it came in this really nice box and you'd open it up and everything was really well organized and really well laid out. And then after about a year, they started kind of, no pun intended, mailing it in, where it was just in some crummy box and you could tell that they just shoved a bunch of stuff in there and then got it out the door. And the experience on that was so different. after they made that change that I ended up canceling the subscription. I did it for a few reasons. Some of that, they also started to kind of repeat stuff, and didn't feel like it was as interesting or whatever. But the unboxing experience was so dramatically different from the first time I got that to the last time I got it. It's wild.
Can I lose a show sponsor here, Gabe?
Please.
Exact same thing in college. My roommates, my friends, and I, we all did like Dollar Shave Club. And when it started out, it was like this box with everything you would need. I feel like there was like a booklet of, I don't remember reading it, but like there was a booklet of information in there, and it was a great experience. The last time I used it, all they would do was pack in like your blades into like a cheap cardboard sleeve, and that was it. Like that was the end of that. So same situation there. But if you start to think about your unboxing experience, I know especially in like the broadband provider space, it can be like, oh, this is kind of odd. But think about that Apple product unboxing, or your Google product unbox. Tech companies do just a great job of this anyway. And think about how that makes you feel as a consumer, as a human, and how that changes your perception of that brand as well. If someone mailed me, a Wi-Fi router in just a plastic bag, I would be very concerned from the point of unboxing.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's a great point. And we're talking about technology companies. Companies generally do a great job of this. So even with technology like a Wi-Fi router, it can still be something that's actually quite interesting.
Yeah. So the last topic here, Gabe, is escaping the discount trap. So we just talked about discounting and what it could potentially do. So what can we do right? Well, I think the biggest thing we alluded to here was, if you have a sale, make it an event and not a routine. Don't have a 365 discount that's on your website. Make it an event, right? Apple does this. We talked about them being more exclusive in their discounting, maybe twice a year in their case. And building on top of that, and this is a conversation I think we hear a lot too, is don't blast your entire subscriber base with a discount offer, right? If you have the ability to do different segmentation to offer those discounts, do that. If you know you have a group of 100 subscribers out of your 10,000 that are at risk, target those 100 with a discount offer, not your entire subscriber base. I think that's a mistake I see more than I'd like to.
Yeah, it's a great point. And it's almost a version of like blasting everybody with an outage notification. Similar thing. You're degrading the value of your brand when you're just blasting broadly these discount messages out to people. If you put an outage on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, everybody sees that, even if they're not impacted by the outage, and that degrades your brand. Similar thing here. If you're offering a discount to everybody, everybody's going to assume that they're just going to be able to purchase based off of that discount. And to Zach's point, it just really degrades the brand there. So I think that's a great point.
And the last thing here, and this is a conversation I also have more than I'd like, and it's all about your regular customers, right? Your full price buyers should be shielded from this discount messaging to protect their reference price as well. And I think, the fix here, Gabe, is instead of, having that discount, offer them early access or an exclusive drop is, again, something we see in the DTC space as well, making them feel a bit more special, and maybe even rewarding them for being a long-term customer of yours. And
Yep.
and the last one here on the list is simply replacing the percent off or the dollars off values with value-driven incentives. So this could be free install in our space. It could be an economic incentive that doesn't degrade the product you're offering, the product's face value. I think another one here, Gabe, that I'm seeing more and more of is outdoor Wi-Fi. That's a fantastic. If my provider reached out today to add outdoor I live in an apartment, so maybe it's silly ad, but if I had a house and someone reached out to me with an outdoor Wi-Fi offer, that would be much more appealing to me than a 5, 10, whatever percent discount. I like the tangible product in that situation.
And you can even combine that a little bit, to use that outdoor Wi-Fi example, some of the providers that we work with charge an installation fee for outdoor Wi-Fi. You
Hmm.
could offer maybe a discount on the installation, still charge them full price for the outdoor Wi-Fi. So you're getting that recurring revenue out of them, but you're getting an easy way for them to onboard into that solution. And to your point, you're creating additional stickiness with the product that they're using. So it's an additional value add for the broadband service. I mean, frankly, the same thing could be said for indoor Wi-Fi. To go back to your example previously of at-risk customers, if I see that I've got a whole bunch of customers that are having a bad Wi-Fi experience because they have TVs or gaming systems or whatever, cameras that have poor connectivity, it may be way more beneficial for me overall financially to just send them a mesh unit to improve their overall Wi-Fi experience, because I know that from a lifetime value perspective, I'm going to keep those customers a heck of a lot longer because I've looked at the data, I've actively understood what their problem was, and then I went out and created a solution for them for something that was frankly relatively inexpensive. I mean, that's probably the cost of, I don't know, 6 months of a discount that you would give to somebody to sign up for your service. Oftentimes we see 10, 20, even $30 discounts on a monthly, from a monthly fee perspective to get people on board. You can get a lot of Wi-Fi extenders or Wi-Fi mesh units, I should say, for that type of cost. And again, you're creating that stickiness because you're providing a better experience to the customer.
I was just going to say the experience on that is worth it as well. Um, Another example, I would much rather have outdoor Wi-Fi or an enhanced Wi-Fi experience within my home than a $250 gift card, which I feel like is just throwing money down the drain at that point.
Oh, dude, don't even get me started on the gift cards. I mean, what's crazy is it's such a high cost of acquisition. I mean, we see this $200, sometimes even a $400 or $500 gift card if people are signing up for specific services. And I get it; it's difficult to break through. But you talk about, bringing in low value customers and just bringing in people who are interested in price. I can't imagine a more aggressive scenario than, literally just giving them cash and, or effectively signing a check and, sending it in the box when you sign them up for service. I mean, that is 100%
You
what you're doing. You're
you
giving them money.
immediately become that transactional provider, and that's the end of that conversation.
Yes. I love that comment you made earlier about the transactional provider, or the transactional. They're loyal to the transaction. They're not loyal to the brand. I thought that was such a
Mhm.
great comment, and it's so spot on. And to go back to the dopamine versus oxytocin comments as well, when they're loyal to the transaction, they're going to continue looking for that dopamine hit of, I need a discount. I need a discount in order to stay with this company.
Mhm.
And that's what we see with I don't even know, Zach, how many emails do you think you have in your inbox right now from
Oh, I've
companies?
deleted
Thousands.
every
I mean,
one of
it's
them,
insane.
but
Yeah.
I feel
Uh,
like we see this in other industries too. Banking, I think of with interest rates, right? If you're rate shopping, you probably don't care much about the bank. You're just looking for that best rate. But again, in banking, once you have that, maybe it's a local community bank, or once you have that exceptional experience, you're more inclined to stick with one. I personally don't rate shop. I think I've got one of the best banks or credit unions, that one could ask for. So I know there's higher rates out there. I know I could be getting more interest rates in that scenario. But again, the customer experience is currently
mhm.
unmatched. So I think that
Did I
applies to every industry.
did I tell you about the poll that I ran on a webinar I did a couple weeks ago about banking? Did I tell you
I don't
the
know if you
results of
did. I don't
this?
know if
I
you
can't
did.
remember. Okay, so Christina Coretta, who you had on the podcast a couple of weeks ago doing the Wicked episode, her and I did a webinar, and I wanted to I wanted to step out of the broadband industry and talk about a different industry because, so many times when we're in our industry, we're just so focused on it and we can't remove ourselves from it. So I pulled up a banking example, and I pulled up a company that had 4 different savings accounts on their website.
Oh
And
man.
they were described very poorly. It was, weird minimum things, and there were different interest rates, and there were different maximums and different minimums. It was a mess. It was a mess. But there wasn't clear differentiation between, the like, why should I choose one of these versus the other? So I asked a poll question of the webinar attendees, which one would you choose? And the results were hilarious because it was literally a 25% even distribution across all 4 of the offers. I was like, this is perfect. This is a perfect answer.
That is not a bell curve.
No, it's not at all. But I just cracked up so hard because I'm like, okay, yeah, we take a step away from our industry and we look at something that we don't think about every single day, in this case, banking and interest rates and stuff like that. But it was just so perfect that it ended up being a 25% distribution across all 4. I was like, this is great. I love this so much. It's so perfect that it ended up this way. I couldn't have planned it any better.
That's coming from banking. That does haunt me a little bit, because I've probably looked at way too many of those tables that compare the different types of checking accounts, the minimum balances or the combined minimum balance, the minimum number of debit card swipes, which, hot take, who uses / has a debit card in 2025? But
I don't even know where mine is. It's somewhere around my house, probably.
This is the funny thing about me is they sent me a new one because mine expired, and I just, shredded that and tossed it away. I legitimately don't have a debit card. So if I ever go to, it's like Winco, I think maybe, that doesn't accept credit cards, but might be in a little bit of trouble there because I also don't have cash on me. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Well, I mean, dude, Apple Pay, or I use the actual app itself. I'm going to Walmart tonight. I'm going to use Walmart Pay because that's their app, instead of paying with my wallet. But again, that just ties back to customer experience. There's nothing worse than either standing behind someone in line or waiting for a self-checkout because someone is counting cash. Pay with your phones, guys.
The worst. Yeah,
and,
for sure.
And on that note, thank you for tuning into Buffering. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast app and to share it with your friends and colleagues. And for more updates and insights, be sure to connect with Gabe and I on LinkedIn.